about time in Houston, and we're going to the playoffs for the third straight year. Texans took down the Chargers today, 20-16. It's their 8th straight win. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what's next as they are back in the playoffs for the third straight year for the first time in Texans history. What a run it's been for D'Amico Ryans in charge of this operation. I'm Paul Gallant. This is the Gallant Says podcast, live on December 27th, 2025. Let's go.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
You got f***ing grow, mother. Are you kidding me?
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oi! Wrong number. That's it. That's the wrong sound effect. We got to go back. Welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Like and subscribe. On Twitch at Gallant Says. Give me a follow, but I'd appreciate a sub. X at Gallant Says Pod. Instagram at Sports Gallant. TikTok at Gallant Says. Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. The Texans took down the Los Angeles Chargers 20-16 today in a game where at times you thought the Texans might run away with it, especially after those first two drives, right? 75-yard touchdown pass, C.J. Stroud to Jaden Higgins on third down. Second drive, 43-yard touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud to Jalen Noel. It looked easy early on. Sadly, it was not easy for the offense throughout this game, but for the defense, it was. This is the best defense in the National Football League. It's going to continue to be the best defense in the National Football League. They are elite quarterback proof. Any great quarterback who goes up against them, they're going to throw them backwards. And while Justin Herbert had a couple of moments in this game where you look at Herbert and you think to yourself, damn, this guy's pretty good, ultimately, the Texans defense continuously frustrated him with a pass rush that swarmed some more. LA had 5 3-and-outs on the game. They were sacked 5 times. 76 of the Chargers, 236 passing yards. So we're basically talking a third of their passing yards came with Tremont Smith in coverage on the Chargers' left sideline, the Texans' right. A 60-yard throw downfield to Quentin Johnson. Another, I think it was a comeback, 18-yard, 16-yard throw to Quentin Johnson, whatever it was. After Kamari Lassiter appeared to have suffered a severe injury, he was fine. 28 of the Chargers' 74 rushing yards came on a 28-yard scramble by Justin Herbert. Omarion Hampton, the Chargers' leading rusher, ran the ball 14 times for 29 yards. That's just over 2 yards a carry. What should have been at least field goal drives for the Chargers were set up by C.J. Stroud mistakes. The Texans' defense is awesome. It's going to continue to be awesome. And really at this point, the only question that you have is about the offense. And once again, you should have questions about the offense coming out of this one. I don't know what I'm supposed to make of the offense coming out of this game. It was so easy early. Is that just because of a couple of Chargers fuck-ups downfield, which allowed for the big touchdowns for Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel? Did the Texans actually draw something up that was effective? The running offense was good today. It was. They went away from it for a little bit. And C.J. Stroud had some miscommunications, some misfires. Obviously, there was some more tinkering on the offensive line, so he didn't have the best protection today. But coming out of this game, that's the big question, much like it's been the big question for all of these games. I'm trying not to be negative. I'm trying not to whine. They won. They're in the playoffs. They still have a shot at the AFC South. They're going to need some help, though, from the now eliminated Indianapolis Colts against the Jaguars tomorrow. Will they get that help? I've got my doubts. I would think if you're the Colts and you know that you've got nothing to play for, what's the point of giving it your all the rest of this way, especially if the quarterback that you've got under center is what, 300,000 years old? So we'll see if the Colts can help the Texans out. If the Colts beat the Jaguars, then Texans just need to win their season finale against Indianapolis to win the AFC South. We will see what happens. Once again, the TikTok has been restricted for unoriginal and reproduced content, which is a load of bullshit. Fuck you, TikTok. I hope you die. Anyway, bringing it back to the Texans and talking about the Texans after their 20-16 win over the Chargers. The defense, not once, but twice against a quarterback that they've gone up against not too long ago, took care of business. We saw them do this against Josh Allen earlier this year. We've seen them do it a couple of times against Patrick Mahomes. Now we've seen them do it twice against Justin Herbert, who said that the last game that they played against the Texans, 32-12, the Chargers lost to the playoffs to the Texans last year. He said this was going to be motivation for him this time around. What did Justin Herbert learn from this game? How did Justin Herbert improve from this game? What did he do to get better from the last game to this game? Nothing. Quarterbacks don't get better after playing the Texans defense twice. You would think that they would have a chance to get better, to understand what the Texans are going to do. It's not like the Texans are super complicated in what they're showing to other offenses, you know? I mean, CJ Stroud, he got duped by that one linebacker who showed blitz but dropped back into coverage. Texans don't really do that. They just show you, hey, we're doing this and we're going to fucking bully you into doing what we want. And they did it again. This defense has a chance to drag that offense, no matter what limitations they have, to a Super Bowl. Now with 8 wins in a row. So let's get to some of y'all's comments. Let's start on YouTube, where we've got Hamza Khalil 3297 saying hello. Hell yeah, indeed. Frank Perez 293 says Rich Eisen shouldn't be doing play-by-play. He's not good at it. Yeah, there's probably better people they could have found to put in there, but alas, earwax. Brandon Halam 51 says the Chargers paid off the refs, but we paid off Dicker. Elite bribe game. Yeah, I don't know if the Chargers paid off the refs. There were some calls that were frustrating for sure. Dalton Schultz shoving that guy after he dove into the back of him after a play was done. A Charger player had flopped a couple of plays before. Someone commented while on the live stream of us watching Texans Chargers that perhaps the Chargers were trying to rage bait in that game. Yeah, man, maybe they were. I don't know. But whatever the case, I don't think that Cameron Dicker was in on the money from the Texans. He just missed a 30-yard field goal. Eventually, Texans players are going to see guys screw up. That's kind of what we've come to expect, especially with what that defense is. And even a guy like Cameron Dicker, who's such a great kicker, can occasionally fuck up, you know? Lots of kickers will miss occasionally from that yardage. You don't do it often in your career, but it does happen every now and then. The Riot 3 says Mills is better than Stroud. You're full of shit. Hamza Khalil 3297 says, do you think our offense's problem is the offensive coordinator or offensive line and Stroud being bad? It's a little bit of everything. It was so easy for the Texans offense early on, and it made me think maybe the offensive line won't be an issue in this game. They did a pretty good job in run blocking. Blake Fisher was not a disaster. Give him a lot of credit because this is a guy that the Texans have gone out of their way to not play. There was no Trent Brown. There was no Ariante Ursary today, and they largely kept C.J. Stroud upright. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Stroud wasn't sacked again in this game. But he made a couple of dumb plays. He made a couple of mistakes. And I wonder if he got suckered into thinking everything was going to work after those first 2 drives and how easy they were. But again, I'm making excuses at this point. The 2 mistakes that C.J. Stroud made in this game would have given a team with a better offense than the Chargers, who are dealing with a lot of injuries on their offensive line, a chance to score and more than a field goal to actually score a touchdown. I don't know why it didn't go down that way for LA, but here we are with the Texans winning and with the Texans being in the playoffs again. Let's read some TikTok comments where I am restricted because this is unoriginal content for some bullshit fucking reason. Tim Vandeville Jr. says Nick Kelly has to go. He called 19 runs in a row on first down, not including the drive to end the half. The last throw on first down was with 5:01 in the first quarter. Yep. And that was the touchdown pass to Jalen Knoll. Maybe there should have been more variance, but to blame it on running it on first down every single time, I mean, that was for much of the game, the Texans' best play, running the football. I know that 34 carries for 118 yards is nothing to write home about, but it's 3.5 yards a carry. So they'll take that. The Texans want to be a running football team. That's DeMeco Ryans talking down to his offensive coordinator and offensive coaches. That's what he wants to do. But it was so easy early on, you would have thought that the Texans would have continued trying to chuck it downfield. More comments here. Gunsmoke VF1 says Texans are Super Bowl bound. We'll see. Big Max 777 says I want to believe in CJ, but he's making it difficult. Glad we have an incredible defense. Yep. That's basically been the entire story of this season. John is saying, I'm wondering why the viewership is so low. This is an every single time thing with TikTok. I have 4 tickets open with TikTok telling them, hey, you keep on restricting my lives for unoriginal content. Why? They never give me an explanation, and I've actually gotten to the point where now I'm just talking shit to them and saying they're all fucking stupid. I don't think it's actually helping me out, honestly. You should speak to customer service with like honey and not vinegar. But the problem is they keep on copying and pasting the same answer to me over and over again, showing me rules and guidelines as far as why I'm violating the guidelines, but they're not explaining what it is that I'm violating. And every single time I ask them to explain it, some fucker named Simone keeps on telling me that, oh, no, you're violating the guidelines. Well, what in the fucking guidelines am I violating? God damn it. Anyway. More comments. End of half management has been awful. And Henry V78 says, I hate the NFL Network. Yeah, I don't blame you. The NFL Network, not the best broadcast. The pregame show wasn't so great. Both the guys picked the Chargers, and they didn't really give a great reasons as to why they were picking the Chargers. And I mean, Rich Eisen, yeah, you could do better at play-by-play than Rich Eisen. Texan Picker says, we got lucky. Dicker, who's consistent, missed an easy field goal and an extra point. They lost by 4. Yep, you're right. You're right. You're 100% right. This was a bad game for Dicker. This was a bad game for the Chargers defenders who were fucking up on those big plays by the Texans. But you take the lucky victories when you can get them. I'm not going to dump on the Texans for this win because of how well their defense played. But sure, yeah, they got lucky. Guess what? Every team that wins a Super Bowl, they're going to get lucky at some point. Take a look at Eli Manning and the helmet catch to David Tyree and the big throw he had down the left sideline to Mario Manningham, the next Patriots Giants Super Bowl. Luck happens in this league, you know? Space Out 94 says, as long as the offense can score 20-plus points, this defense is Super Bowl bound. Well, they also have to stay healthy. Curious to know whatever Kamari Lassiter is dealing with, whatever injury that was. It looked serious in the moment. He, to his credit, walked off on his own power with a towel over his head, came back in, played the rest of the game, if I'm not mistaken. Azeez Al-Shaair, who seemed to come up lame a couple of times in this game, left, it seemed like, with a shoulder injury. He also walked off the field limping at one point, but he finished the game too. Really, injuries defensively, if another injury happens, you do have questions about whether or not this defense is going to be able to do what they're doing on a weekly basis, and they did a hell of a job today. Josh Primo comments on X/Twitter. John McClain is the most negative Texans fan and reporter in history. We beat a playoff team with a half-dead offensive line. CJ had a bad day and let his defense play. Well, he didn't have a bad day at first, and it felt like he got a little bit greedy there. I don't know what John did today that has you thinking he's the most negative person. I'm pretty negative, too, I've been told, you know? There are moments in this game which made you definitely want to pull your hair out, but I'm happy they won 8 in a row. You should be happy they won 8 in a row, too. 11 wins is the most wins of the DeMeco Ryans era. They have a chance to have 12 wins. And while they're not going to get the 1 seed in the AFC, there's still an outside shot that they win the AFC South. They're just going to need some help from a now eliminated Colts team against the Jaguars tomorrow. I don't think the Titans, the last week of the year, are going to give the Texans the help that they're looking for, you know? Christopher Corey says, Paul, be better than Landry and all the others. Be positive about the victory. Yeah, the defense was great today. Justin Herbert's a great player. They had 5 sacks today. They could have had 8 sacks if not for some of the plays that were called back. And look, a lot of people are going to talk about the Texans being lucky. You have the dropped catch for a first down on 3rd down. This was a throw to Keenan Allen on the 3rd drive of the game for the Chargers. You had the dropped catch by Arondé Gadsden Jr. Bad throw by Justin Herbert. I'm kidding. I like Syracuse, guys. Gadsden went to Syracuse. They got picked off by Azeez Al-Shaair. The Texans won. That should have been at least 3 points for the Chargers there. Instead, they settled for none. Cameron Dicker missed the 32-yard field goal. Cameron Dicker missed an extra point. Sure, the Texans got lucky, but the Texans had some bad luck too. There were a couple of sacks, 3 nullified by penalties. One was on a tripping under Nico Autry. One was by an illegal contact, and the other was by a defensive holding. So the Chargers had their lucky moments. The Texans had their unlucky moments, but the Texans got fortunate themselves. The defense is great. If it stays healthy, it's going to be able to carry them all the way. And I think really the Texans got to figure out identity-wise what it is that they're trying to do. I think optimally, they want to be a team that runs the football a lot. This game opened up with them having so much ease throwing the football downfield. You could understand how C.J. Stroud would maybe get a little greedy, think to himself, I can keep on making this happen. And then it's fewer and far between as the game goes along. But he was lights out on those first 2 drives. The Texans' offense was lights out on those first 2 drives. How do they get back to that? What do they do? Is it possible to get back to that with some of the injuries that they have on the offensive line? I don't think I've been that negative about the team, but I also want to be fair when talking about it. There were certainly some things that happened in today's game that lend itself to frustration. Christopher Curry says McLean, Landry, even Stutes are consistently shitting on the team. Someone in the comment section says I'm consistently shitting on the team. We expect more out of them. I have no issue with Landry, with Cody, with John saying what they say. I have high standards. I grew up a Patriots fan. I have the highest standards of anyone. I'm not even happy with wins anymore. Like, it's tough to make me impress. That don't impress me much. Show your Shania Twain, and you got the touch. Don't get me wrong. All right. Jesse Villanueva asks, are we playing the Chargers in the playoffs again? Seems unlikely. Both teams are in the playoffs, that they would play in round number 1, at least just based off of where things are at right now. If you take a look at the playoff standings, with the win, the Texans are now the 6th seed in the AFC. They jump over the LA Chargers. Say the Bills were to lose another game, the Texans would jump to 5. If the Bills have the same record as the Texans, because the Texans have the tiebreaker over the Bills. The Bills have an extra division loss. They have an extra conference loss. So the Texans hold tiebreakers over Buffalo, plus they have the head-to-head tiebreaker as well. So if the season were to end today, the Texans would play the winner of the AFC South, and that would be the Jacksonville Jaguars if it ended today. But the Jaguars lose to the Colts, the Texans would be the leader of the AFC South, and then they would ultimately play, since the Jaguars beat the Chargers. So it's looking like Texans-Jaguars round 3 is a possibility. And I don't know what would happen in that game. I really don't. I do expect the Patriots to win out. We'll see if the Broncos win out. Broncos are 13-3. New England's 12-3. But those are likely your 1 and 2 seeds in some order. I don't think the I don't think the Jaguars can get there without a lot of help. But the Jaguars did beat the Broncos, so I suppose it is possible. World of Warcraft Spartacus comments, there's no way that Ref Crew can come close to a playoff game. I don't know about that, bro. I don't know about that. They don't have as high of a standard for the refs as you might think. Brandon Lamb 51 says, calling it now, NFL is going to schedule a game against the Chargers in the first 3 games of the Texans season next year. Maybe. TikTok comments. Spaced Out 94 asks, do you think we should rest our defensive starters to be fresh for the playoffs, or at least the main ones dealing with injuries? Well, you got 1 game left. It's the Colts. Can you beat the Colts with your backups? I feel like the Texans will play their starters at some point in the game. It really depends on whether or not they have a chance to win the AFC South and win the division. If the Jaguars win on Sunday, it's going to be still an uphill battle for the Texans to win the division, because you're hoping that the Titans win in the last game of the year against the Jaguars. But even if the Jaguars win tomorrow, I believe the Texans still have a shot at the AFC South. So I think you play your guys. I think you try to keep the rust from checking in. Texans picker says, you're right. It was an ugly game all around. Outside of the first 2 Texans drives. Yeah, it was really ugly. Lots of punts, lots of 3-and-outs. Henry V78 says, I don't think Stroud is bad, just the O-line is bad. Well, I don't know. The throws that Stroud made that were intercepted today were foolish plays. They really were. Like, come on, man. You can't do that. You simply can't. So, sure, the offensive line had its issues, and sure, Nick Caley, blah, blah, blah. Too many runs on first down instead of throws on first down. But, I mean, the first interception where the guy was blitzing and dropped back into coverage, Stroud was throwing to a guy who was covered as it was. You know? Josh Primo asks, what bar tonight? I think I'm going to something on Kirby. Roger Krieger's playing, I believe. So there you go. I don't know where. Like Armadillo Palace, I think, is where I'm going to be at. What else do we have here as far as comments go? Calling it now, says Brandon Halam, 51. The NFL will not schedule a game against the Chargers the first 3 weeks. Will schedule a game against the Chargers the first 3 games of the Texans season next year. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Don't really care either. It's all about this year, you know? Jimmy Wynn says, Colts win tomorrow for us. I don't think so, but it would be nice. Rick Hagewood, 1079. Shout out to Rick. Herbert must seriously hate the Texans. 2 huge losses to us in 1 year, especially considering if you listen to Justin Herbert leading up to this week's game, he was saying, yeah, the last game is in the back of my mind. I want to avenge what happened the last time around. Phoenix Lane says the first pick wasn't too bad, but the second was just a bad decision in that situation. Jimmy Wynn also says, hard to play a perfect game. That stupid-ass flag with Schultz was the beginning. Yeah, there were some dumb flags in this game for sure. For sure. I thought the Chargers were flopping a lot. I thought they were very Los Angelian. Los Angelian, which is to say, meow, soft. What else do we have here? I think I've said about all I can say. They're in the playoffs, and ultimately that's all that matters. Give them credit for making it to the playoffs one more time, and we will see what they're able to do. Once there, they still have a shot at the AFC South, and that defense is quarterback proof. I think that's the big takeaway from this game. It's going to be really tough for any for any offense to move the football against this defense. They're that good. I can't think of one quarterback that would make it happen. And on that note, guys, appreciate y'all for tuning in to this live edition of the Gallant Says podcast. No show on Monday. I'm taking next week off. I'm going to be going to Florida. We will be back on January 5th. We appreciate all the support that you give us on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Like this video and subscribe. On X/Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. Please give me a follow if you haven't already. Instagram at Sports Gallant. You can see clips of the show there. TikTok at Gallant Says. This got restricted again. We'll see how what that asshole person that keeps on restricting my lives has to say. This time we appeal said restriction. On Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. And on Twitch at Gallant Says. Give me a sub, but give me a follow, but I really appreciate a sub. It's also available after the fact in podcast form, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify until the 5th of January. I am merely Paul Gallant. So long, farewell.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.
And have yourselves a